All right, everybody, welcome back to this episode of the Shelf Scan Podcast. If you're listening, today is March 11th? No.
9th. Someday in March. It is March.
Yeah, it's been one of those days. It's been one of those weeks so far. But when this comes out, it'll be Friday, March 12th. If you're listening to it, we'll release it on March 12th, but we're recording on Tuesday, March 9th. And today we're going to stick to a singular topic, if at all possible. The great debate in the library system these days, the divide between old school and new school, the divide between boomer, millennial, and Gen Z, genreification, or the Dewey Decimal System. Do we or don't we? That is the big question. Lots of libraries have decided to do away with Dewey and get rid of the numerical classification numbers and decide to put their books in a more bookstore, genreification, genre-specific format. Now, why would they want to do that? Shani, can you tell us?
Yeah, I was telling you, I'd read something the other day where I have never had a person come into the library and say, hey, I want to read a book in the 800s today. What have you got for me? No, they come in and they say, I need a book on poetry. Or I want a cookbook. That nobody has ever come in and said, where's your 641.5 section? Nobody has ever done that before. They want cookbooks.
No, and the same goes for my patrons with their parents. Nobody says, Little Billy wants 551.5. No, Little Billy wants dinosaurs. Where can I find the dinosaurs? You know, Little Sally wants 6 No, Little Sally wants trucks. Little Sally wants whatever.
Yeah.
So I went online and I looked at some stuff, and I looked at some Dewey pros and cons. Maybe I can read those off and then we can talk about each one.
Yeah.
All right. So the Dewey Decimal System versus bookstore. Dewey pros, well, it's widely used. Most libraries still use Dewey.
Yes. Very few do not have some form of Dewey.
Mm-hmm. So it's consistent. If you can find your favorite books at our library and you go to another library that uses Dewey, you can also find their books.
Exactly.
No problem. There's no difference. They're going to be maybe obviously in a different room than here. You'd have to ask where they are. But if you want dinosaurs, 550 something, 551. Then you go to get 551. It's no problem. And another pro for Dewey, they say it clearly defined categories for just about every kind of book. It's easy to find books that might be able to fit inside 2 or 3 different classifications. Now that's a point of Dewey that I actually like because I buy a lot of nonfiction because it's still requested and still wanted by my patrons. And so a lot of times I don't know where it's supposed to fit. So I look in our catalog or go to the Library of Congress or wherever website to figure out what Dewey classification is. And it makes it so easy because there's just a number. And I just put that number on there and that's that.
Yep, exactly. And then once in a while, you'll get the girls who work here and they're like, wait a minute, sharks don't go in the middle of dogs. And we'll realize that somebody's transposed a number somewhere along the line or something, and it's in the wrong category. But you're absolutely right. I like, in a way, that specificity that you can go, I want a book on an orangutan. I don't want a book on, what are they called? What are monkeys and orangutans and gorillas?
Primates. Or apes.
I don't want just a book on a primate. I want to go right to the orangutans. Oh my goodness gracious, brain fart. So that's a good thing about it is I don't have to weed through a bunch of other books. I can go right to where I want to go.
Yeah, it's a little bit more of a laser. To use like a weapon reference, it's a little bit more of a laser beam than a shotgun approach. And you know exactly where the orangutans are because they have the specific number on them. And for a librarian, like I said before, ordering books, it makes it a lot easier to just have a number and just put it on there.
Oh, and it's really simple too, because as a librarian, you go through your collection and you're like, you know what, we're really heavy in books on dogs, but I've only got 3 books on horses. So you can go to where we buy our books. You can go to their website and you can look for books on horses, and you can look for that Dewey number, and you can find the latest and greatest books on horses or horse care. That's the other thing, is that's the bad part about not having Dewey, is now you've got horse, or maybe the good part is you've got horse care, or you've got ponies, you've got show horses, you've got all these different areas. And how do you decide where that book goes?
That would definitely be a con of genreifying your collection. And I also, the order doesn't change, I wrote down. The order in Dewey is the same as it's always been. It works for a person looking to do research. One point that I thought of you when it came up that I was reading was, especially in middle school or high school, genreification can separate books by author. And a lot of times when middle schoolers or teenagers come in, especially teenagers, when they get into a book series, they're looking for books by the author. They're not like 6 or 7 year olds who will just grab any book on sharks that they can.
Exactly.
If they're doing research, they want a specific book, not just to browse.
Right. Exactly. Yes. So that's the thing, is like, do we or don't we? What do we do? And we could be in a prime position here in the near future, hopefully, that we could change things up and make it a lot easier for people. Because I know when my kids were little and I walked into a nonfiction room, or even downstairs, I remember when my girl was little and I wanted to learn how to braid her hair. I had no idea. Well, actually, even the girls downstairs had to look it up, because that's pretty specialized.
Yeah.
There's not a section. And I can guarantee if we do away with Dewey and go with a more bookstore feel, there's not probably going to be a braiding hair section. Yeah. It's going to fit under something else. Like
self-care, health.
Yes.
That kind of thing. That's where I was going to say. It's probably got some 7-digit Dewey number that's just crazy organized to the nth degree, which really just highlights how many librarians are absolute control freaks.
Yes.
And hate chaos.
Yes. See, and that's the other thing, is we have a nice small hometown. We're not a real big city. So we have the nonfiction books, but we don't take them out to that nth degree on the Dewey. I mean, we've had librarians that have worked here before who will have a book at 102.34756. No, now Mike and I and the other people who catalog here, we're pretty good at 102.34.
Yeah. It's maybe 2 or 3.
Yep, maybe that third number if necessary, but we're not going to go all the way out.
No.
We just don't have that. But in a college type situation, you may need that.
Yeah, they're a little bit different, because I know that's one thing I discovered is academic libraries and college libraries use the Library of Congress classification, which is a little bit more efficient and is different than Dewey.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
All right. So those are couple pros, but a con of Dewey is it's intimidating. I think we just touched on that. Yes. You don't know if you don't. I hate to say this because it sounds like it's not important, but as a kid, anytime we went to the library to learn about Dewey, I didn't care. I didn't pay attention. I just
don't remember.
No, and most of our patrons, they're browsing for books. They're not especially nowadays, you can Google and find anything out in 3 seconds, whereas when I was in high school, I had to spend a Saturday on the microfilm machine and the microfiche looking up all these things at the Grand Rapids Public Library. It took all day to do the research that now can be done with a couple of mouse clicks.
Right. And then you can find that information and then find out that, primates is what I want to do my report on. And then you can come to the library and you can find that book or find the encyclopedia, which we do actually still have encyclopedias. And you can get the information, because I know a lot of teachers want you to cite your information. So you can't just Google. Google gets you to a certain point, but that's where libraries come in. And that's where, like Mike said, we want you to be able to walk in and be able to find these things and not be intimidated, especially in the building that we're in or anything else. I mean, you don't always have somebody right there who's going to help you know that braiding is going to be in self-care or
Yeah,
where.
in these unprecedented pandemic times, we're not out there helping people. We're relegated to our office.
Yes, exactly. If you come into the library and you see Mike or I out in the library, that's a rare occasion.
Yep.
We are out there doing something and we're scuttling right back to our little workstation because that is where we're all supposed to be and stay our distance.
Sure. And if you do see us out there, that's your chance to take advantage of us helping you, because it's just by chance.
Yes.
Honestly.
Yeah.
All right. So that's a little bit of talk on Dewey. Let's go to the other side. Let's flip it. Let's talk about genreification, or the bookstore method. All right. Pros: aid literacy and discovery. The goal is to make books easier to find. When students or patrons enter the library, they have an idea of what subject they want already. Genreification empowers patrons to discover new books and genres they already favor by placing similar books near each other.
Exactly. Like I said, I walked in looking for a book on braiding. I had no idea where that book was at. And once I got there, I realized there's all kinds of different things that you can do. There's 3 or 4 different kinds of books. And the same thing with the person who wanted the book on poetry. They may come in thinking that, oh, I want that Shel Silverstein, where the sidewalk ends. And they're going to find a half dozen other books on poetry that they're going to like because they're all grouped together.
Yep. I like that. It encourages them to get out of what they already like, and frequent patrons are finding they'll find new books. They'll read more books that they didn't even know existed. If you put them together in a different way, they're going to see them. And especially for my age group, it makes it easy for reluctant readers. Look, a reluctant reader already doesn't want to be there. They already don't want to get a book. They're probably being forced to. So if you want to make it as easy as possible for them to get what they want, so they can have a positive experience, and will want to have more positive experiences.
Exactly. I don't know how many times when the kids are supposed to be doing their summer reading and they come in right before school starts and they were supposed to read 3 books over the summer, and they have not read anything yet, and yet they want a short book. But they want something that is going to, their parents say, well, he doesn't like to read, but he needs something. He needs it right now. It needs to be a short book so he can read it. I almost always go right to nonfiction because I ask them, what are you interested in? And you're going to find, they're more technical and there's a lot of different jargon in there. So the reading level is going to be up. So they are shorter books, but it's going to be something that holds their attention. They don't want to read a story that's got a car in it. They want to read about cars. They want to learn about those cars. Yep, tractors or dogs or whatever.
They say, know your collection better. Each librarian can genreify their library based on the needs of their individual patrons and collection. It can be thought of as a library fingerprint.
You know what? And we have done that here.
Yeah.
When I first started, we had a huge reference area, a huge area of just reference books. And, they couldn't leave the library. They were just books to look at here. And we found that nobody was looking at those books.
Right.
So we've eliminated those. We've opened up our nonfiction area and our other areas, but we are a popular fiction library here. And when we do buy the nonfiction, it is usually going to be on something that they have seen on a Today Show, somebody's favorite book list, or a biography that they've heard about.
Right. I've noticed that even the nonfiction that is purchased for the adult patrons usually has to do with current events.
Yes.
Most of that. Or self-help. I've seen that before too. Cooking is another big one.
Yep.
But a lot of that also is because there's cooking shows on TV that people like.
Right. Right. And it's a little harder for you, Mike, in the children's area because kids are still learning about history. Mm-hmm. But I don't know about you, but I don't want to read that book that was written in the 50s.
Yeah, right.
And, I want a book with current illustrations and people who look like me.
Right.
And so we're always having to update our book. So, yes, even though World War II ended the way it did, we want to get new books on that and update our information so that it makes it popular.
Yeah, and this generation is different than other generations. You can say for good or for bad, it just is. It's just the way it is. And so you find books on old topics that really don't tell the true story. When I got here in 2013, I think I removed like 5 or 6 Christopher Columbus biographies because they talked about mostly what a swell guy he was and how he discovered America. And this is, I was thinking, wow, this is 2013. Nobody thinks that. I don't think that anymore.
Exactly.
They don't even teach that anymore.
Right, exactly. Well, and look at poor Pluto. When I was a kid, Pluto was a planet.
Me too.
And now he's not a planet. And maybe he's a small planet or whatever.
A dwarf
planet. Yeah. So things change. And so our nonfiction changes. And I'm thinking that maybe the way we shelve our nonfiction needs to change too.
It could. Some people feel, some librarians, not people. I mean, librarians are people, but professionals, that's what I want to say. Some librarians feel that gentrification may enable students to become stuck in one genre. Sticking to one genre, they say, will limit their ability to enjoy other types of books. They're concerned that there will be uneven circulation numbers. I just don't buy that. I mean, once they learn the Dewey classification for dinosaurs, why are they going to not get stuck there, whether it has a number on the spine or if it doesn't have a number on the spine? I don't understand that.
Exactly. They're interested in what they're interested in, and dinosaurs may not be a great example. Let me think of something like police officers. You're going to have them in the zeros.
300s.
Yeah, is it 300s? Mm-hmm. So you've got different careers and things, but then maybe you want to learn about the history of those people.
Yeah.
Or different things. So you've got different things, and they're going to reach out and they're going to find that. If they're interested in it, they're going to look for it. They're going to ask for help, and that's where we come in at.
Yeah, and there was another example where they give the categories really fun names, which I really liked. One of them was Pack Your Bags. So it was like geography books of different countries, and they were combined with like books on maps and books on national parks and books on languages all together. Like everything you could need if you're going to go on a trip. And I like that.
I like that too.
And I don't know why they're worried about uneven circulation numbers. Your library is going to be your library. If it's uneven, just because you genreify the collection, it was probably uneven when it was Dewey.
Exactly.
So
right.
Why are you so worried about books that don't check out? Why are you so worried that you might have to weed and you might need a bigger part of this collection and this collection might fall by the wayside? I mean, I don't there's a section in our nonfiction room that's like math help, math problems. Those books, they never go out. Nobody checks those out. And so I'm really not concerned if I don't have that many of them, because nobody asks.
Right, exactly. Yep, and yet you're going to have, like we said, the popular ones. Now, my son was one of those reluctant readers, and I've told everybody here that he would only read biographies of scientists.
Okay,
He was very specific.
Yes.
But you know what? Once he found out about those scientists, then he wanted to go and find out what they had created. Or, he went to different parts of it. So I don't think that you're going to be stuck in one genre. And you know what? And if they are, they are. If you're only interested in cars, you don't want to read books about puppies.
Yeah. And who's going to tell you as an adult when you get out to the working world, well, Tom, you haven't read this many books about, you haven't read that many books about submarines. Maybe you should maybe you should put down Jack Reacher and do this do this history of the submarine.
Yeah, exactly. And just because I read maybe a Clive Cussler, maybe I'm going to go and I want to read that book on submarines. But you know what? Probably not.
Books and reading have so much more competition these days to pass people's time. So why are you going to make it even harder? It doesn't make any sense to me. The only thing that I can see that would stop me right now, because I love genreification. I do like the idea. I'm not 100% sold that it is for me, for our community right now, because it's expensive. Time and effort, relabeling, reorganizing, recataloging, reshelving. It's a lot of man hours. It's money to provide the labels and the paper and all that. And I don't really have a specific goal in mind. I mean, to just say, oh, I want people to be able to find their books easier. Well, I can accomplish that by doing clearer signage on Dewey. So that's the question that I have to think of before I go ahead with this, and is what's the end goal?
Right.
What do I want to see if I do this?
Well, in the position that we're in right now, the way that your nonfiction room is set up, it does not really make sense to do that because you don't have space to break them up. Right now, the books would run right into one another.
Yeah.
So it would be really difficult to do that. Now, we've been talking Dewey, but also genreification. Like in the teen room, we try really hard to put a label on there, whether it's a mystery or a fantasy, that kind of thing. And it's partially because we want to be able to help you find the book that you want to read. But here, with the nonfiction room, especially the kids' nonfiction room, it's really simple for us. Because if you walk in, we're going to ask you, what are you interested in? And right now we know, because it's a small area, we know right where to go.
Yeah.
And we may pull out a couple of different books for you to look at because they do hit into different classifications.
Right.
But I think the adult area might be an easier way to do that because it's all broken up around the whole building. The nonfiction is a little bit here and a little bit there. Where for the children, boom, it's all in one room.
It's all in one space.
Yes.
That is an advantage of, I'm loath to say that this place has advantages, but I have come to appreciate the separation of my different levels. I have one nonfiction room, one J-fiction room, one tween room, one book with picture books and easy readers. It's very easy for me to just say, oh, you're going to go in that room. Or, yep, let's go across the hall and find some chapter books for you.
Exactly. But in the other day, we had a little girl who wanted a book on science fiction. And it was really kind of hard because she could read the books in the picture book room, but she needed really a chapter book. I mean, it's really kind of difficult. So I think that it would be nice to have so that you didn't feel as a child, you didn't feel kind of funneled into an area.
Sure.
Where, you know what, today I want to read maybe Dr. Seuss. He's been in the news a lot. And maybe I want to read Dr. Seuss. He's not going to be in every room.
Right.
You know, so that's something to look at too.
I'll have to write that down for our next episode. We should talk about him. We should discuss him and the controversy. Yeah. If I wasn't so into this Dewey debate, then I would probably say we should talk about that now. But we've already been talking for almost a half an hour at this point.
Yeah. So hey, stay tuned for the big Dr. Seuss debate.
Yeah. So I think we've said everything we want to say. Have you?
Yeah, I think so. And just to let you know that I am Shani. I work with the teens, and we do have a very small nonfiction area. But part of that is because most of the things that the teens are going to want to learn about are going to be covered in one of the other two areas. There's no sense to duplicate those books. So if you want to read about flowers or plants, there's no reason for me to also have books on flowers and plants. You're going to cover it in one of the other areas.
Right. And if not, the teens are old enough to read adult nonfiction.
Exactly. Right. And that's usually where we refer them. I do hope, like you said, in the future, I would love to be able to have an area, because one of the areas that the teens really kind of lose out on is the self-help. Yeah. Because they're in a certain little niche, they're learning about themselves, their bodies, their peers, their families, and that would be kind of a nice area to have, books for them. But you're right. I think that we have a nice setup here. We really know our community, and we know what the community wants. And if we don't have them here in the library, we can get those through interlibrary loan.
Yep. They have a lot of options. Interlibrary loan, Mel. We've got a lot of options for you. So if we don't have it, don't be discouraged. We can have it for you. It just might take a few days, up to a week or more.
Especially with quarantine.
Yeah, right. So anyways, I'm going to go ahead and say we're going to sign off here. I hope you've listened to this. Thank you if you are still with us. And we will hopefully see you again in person very soon. So I'm Mr. Mike.
I am Shani.
Have a great day.